So this week, our featured mushroom is chestnut mushrooms. Pholiota adiposa. These are also known as cinnamon cap mushrooms. It's a mushroom that people aren't quite as familiar with, but it's a delicious mushroom. It goes great in a gravy. That's what I like to do with it. And, interesting thing about growing chestnuts early on when I started growing mushrooms, I started out probably like most people do with easy to grow mushrooms. I grew a lot of oyster mushrooms. I was growing a lot of lion's mane mushrooms. And chestnuts were one of the varieties that I saw other people growing. And really, they're not very hard to grow. They take longer to grow than oysters or lion's mane. So the incubation period on these is like 20 or 30 days, and then it takes another 20 or 30 days for them to fruit. I like to grow these just top fruited. I'll just cut the whole top of the bag off and just let them fruit like that. Other people just grow them out through slits, kind of the way that oysters grow. That's fine. This is just the way that I prefer to do them. And I'll get 2 good flushes off of a block. So an interesting story, when I first decided to try to grow these, I had been growing oysters. Lion's mane and oysters, for the most part, their mycelium is white. So when I started growing these, they started out in the grain spawn with a nice white mycelium, and they colonized well. I inoculated the sawdust blocks that I had with the grain spawn, like I normally do. As I was watching my sawdust colonize, I realized that the mycelium was changing kind of these weird colors. They were starting to get kind of this yellowish color. Here's a block of chestnuts that's well colonized, but as you can see, it's not really white. It's kind of yellowish, a little bit brownish, like kind of a variety of colors, which was weird. It was different than the myceliums I was used to. So I think back then I had 4 or 6 of these substrates, and I tossed them out. I decided that they were contaminated. I tried it again, and same thing. My grain spawn was nice, consistent, kind of a white mycelium. As it colonized, it looked good, it looked healthy. There were no green spots, there were no black splotches or anything like that. So again, I used that grain spawn to inoculate some sawdust, because using master's mix. And once again, after 2 or 3 weeks, I started to get these weird kind of almost like a mustardy, kind of a yellowy kind of color. And it's like, man, I don't know what's going wrong here. Somehow my blocks are getting contaminated. So I decided to give up on it. Sometime later, I was watching some videos, and I saw somebody growing chestnuts, and I decided to check out their video. And I noticed that their substrates were kind of the color that mine were. And what I realized was that there was actually nothing wrong with the blocks. Chestnut's just kind of a weird color. So I tried again, and I let them go, and sure enough, they fruited. I've had pretty good success growing these. Again, they take a little longer to grow, about the same as shiitakes. Shiitakes take about 6 or 8 weeks before they're ready to fruit. So chestnuts are probably a little bit faster than that, but not much. So they're not hard to grow, but they take up space. And you can grow a lot of oysters in the amount of time that it takes to grow chestnuts. So shiitakes are always easy to get rid of. And even if you don't get rid of them, shiitakes you can dry, and people like to buy them dried. So During this next stage of growth, I think I'm going to get away from growing the chestnuts and just focus on growing shiitakes as my kind of alternate mushroom. We'll grow a lot of oysters, a lot of different varieties of those. Of course, lion's mane is always good. And then shiitakes, and then maybe I'll come back to these later in the year, next year, whatever, when I expand. That's my little story about chestnuts. It's a great mushroom, highly recommend it, and they're fun to grow. See you next time.